There's the live indication. We are indeed live for yet another episode or edition or meeting, whatever you want to call it, of the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas. It's July 10th, 2020, and it's 7:09 p.m. here in Central Time where our club meets. And so we'd like to welcome everybody to the evening. We're going to have a fun, lighthearted evening, talking astronomy, talking present astronomy and past astronomy too. It's going to be a fantastic, fun evening. So hopefully, as I'm doing this long-winded intro, everybody starts joining in. I see the view count going up already. We've already got 11 people. So welcome to all of y'all joining us. We are super excited to have y'all here, and we're just gonna have a good time discussing astronomy tonight. Now, we are the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas. We are a 501c3 nonprofit group here in Beaumont, Texas, and we meet once a month at the Beaumont ISD Planetarium. But right now, due to the whole pandemic thing, we are not meeting in person, which is definitely the wisest thing. We're meeting at our homes, which is very cool, which gives us an awesome opportunity to get Mr. Howard Miner in here. So we're gonna talk to these gentlemen here on the panel and welcome them in, and welcome all of y'all as well. I see there's already some comments coming in, and there's Andy Cowley. Nice to see you, Andy. Jessica is in the house, that looks like. Mario Cervantes, how you doing, Mario? And there's Mr. Oh, their comments are coming in so fast I can't even click on the right ones here, which is awesome. Spencer Pratt. Everybody knows Spencer Pratt. Well,
hey, Spencer.
If you're a member of the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas, there we go. Andy's from the UK. So look, we've already got our first international audience member. Andy, welcome. Thank you for joining us, man. We really appreciate that. There's Steve Olson in the house, and Mr. Lloyd Overcash, which just happens to be the image down below that Eddie is standing on the surface of the sun today, thanks to Lloyd Overcash.
Yeah, Lloyd. It's a beautiful image. I hope you don't mind I'm using it. If you do, let me know and I'll change it. But it is a beautiful image you got.
I agree. Lloyd Overcash is one of the better solar and planetary, well, I mean, just general astrophotographers that I know. And again, you can look behind Eddie here. I'll blow Eddie up and go ahead and introduce Eddie. And there he goes. But Eddie is on the surface of the sun tonight. And Eddie, good to see you, brother. I'm glad you could join us, man.
Oh, it's good to be here, Will. Thanks for putting this on. I'm hoping that we have a good meeting. I got a feeling it's going to be a good one. We got some good people. It's good to see Howard. It's good to see you. And it's good to see the room filling up.
Absolutely, man. We have a full house tonight with I won't use that view because it cuts part of us off there, so I'll use this view. But yeah, it's a full house tonight. It looks like coming into the chat. So we're going to get to some of those comments and questions here in a little bit, get some greetings. But first, introduce Eddie. So now we're going to introduce Mr. Howard Miner. Now, I say that Howard Miner is one of the founding members of the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas, but he did join the club in the early 2000s, which was way before my day. So that's why I consider him one of the founding members, because he was there before I was. But Howard has been one of my greatest mentors, I think, in observational astronomy. He, super welcoming. He was one of the first people in the group in 2009 to approach me and say, "Welcome to our meeting. Here's a information pamphlet." Handed me some information on the club, and super welcoming. And then every star party Howard and I went to together, I set up near him, and he'd always be like, "Well, come look at this galaxy I've got over here." And so I'd wander over to his scope and be blown away at the difference between his 17.5-inch telescope versus my 8-inch or whatever I was using in those days. And so, Howard, man, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us tonight.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's been 4 years since we moved away from the Beaumont and over here near Conroe, and so nobody in the club probably recognizes me, and I am Howard. I am the one that sends out the newsletter, but not before my wife checks it, and she has to do that. She says sometimes I make errors. And it usually takes us about 20 minutes to correct them before I can mail it out. But anyway, I am Howard, and I'm glad to be here and looking forward to this evening.
Absolutely. So Howard did mention the newsletter, which is a fantastic part of our club. It's a monthly thing, and so members mail in articles to the editor himself here, and they put together a very choice publication for our, and it's only for members, it's a member benefit, which is really cool. We're gonna show that here in a little bit, so you guys can get a taste of what we do as a club. But it looks like we've got some people in the chat that we'll go ahead and welcome in real quick, and then we'll get to some of the astronomy chatting that we have to do. We've got Mr. S. Hammond from Groves, Texas, or Mrs., I guess. Great to have you, Mr. or Mrs. Hammond, the Hammond family, if you will. Joe Richards in the house. The comments are pretty slow. Yeah, and I'm even slower getting to them because once we start yammering on, you know how that goes. Bill and Mary Dixon in the house. Great to see y'all. They say howdy from Bill and Mary. Great to see Howard. It is great to see Howard. I agree. Howard is an integral part of our club that we have been missing for 4 years, and it doesn't seem that long, Howard. That's crazy.
It really doesn't.
That's insane. That's just it's how time flies. It's crazy. Mr. Mark Jackson from the UK, another UKer, UKE, whatever, however you say it. Good to have you, Mark, in the house. Let's see. Zia, how you doing there? Lloyd says free to use. There you go. Eddie, you are good to go, my friend. And Joe says, but
I appreciate it.
But Joe says, don't blow up, Eddie. So don't burn up. You know, however you wanna do it. There's Robert Emanuel, another member of the Astronomical Society. There he is. Good to see you, Robert. And I wonder who that is. Mrs. Kat Trevino. How you doing, Kat? And she may be in the house somewhere behind. She may be on the sun further than Eddie is. Who knows?
She's coming in from the backside of the sun, so there she is.
Like stereo A and B, right?
Yeah.
Good to see you, Kat. Glad you could join us, as always. Let's see. Mr. Andy says, how you all had a look at the comet? We're going to talk about the comet. We got some cool stuff on that coming up here in a second. Mr. Roger Dillon in the house. Roger's another friend of ours who joins us at most of the star parties out there. Sets up near Howard, Eddie, and I, and is a brilliant amateur astronomer. Good to see you, Roger.
It's good to see a lot of these people that are club members. Roger and Sharon and Robert.
Sharon Rigsby in the house. Now, Sharon runs our planetarium for us when we do have in-person meetings, and we're hoping to get back to those maybe in 2021 or, you know, whenever we can get past all this. So, but it'll be good to see Sharon again at the planetarium. And Kat says it's been cloudy here in Killeen, but they're wanting to see the comet. And it's been cloudy and dusty here in Southeast Texas too, which has been it's been quite annoying, but that's the way it goes, I guess.
Yeah.
Greg Schaefer in the house. Good to see you, Greg. Lester, how you doing? We're having clear skies right now, but it's hot. So that's that high pressure that's over us, unfortunately. And Steve's ready. Steve's set up for the comet tonight. That's awesome, man.
Nice.
So, good deal. So, and we're going to get to some more of y'all's comments. If y'all have comments or questions at any point during tonight's presentations, just throw them down in the chat, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are, or wherever you're watching us from. We can get your comments and we'll throw them down in here, and we can put them up on the screen, and one of our panel of experts here will be able to answer your question when we get to that. So without any further delay, we're going to get to the meeting part of it, and so then we can get through that and have some fun discussion. And keep it on rolling here. Oops. Well, maybe I do it like that. How about that? And I started on the wrong slide. Normally we start right there. So there it is. We are the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas. Welcome for those of y'all that are not a member of our club, and to those of y'all that are, it's good to see y'all. We are, like I said, a 501c3 nonprofit based out of here in Beaumont, Texas. And if you want to be a member, we do encourage that. You can be a remote member, and we can talk about that later in the night if y'all are interested in that. And so I'm going to be missing some comments, guys. So I will get back to them. I promise. Don't think we're ignoring you. We're just, once I switch over to this screen that I'm on right now, I can't see anything but the presentation, unfortunately. So we're going to get through this pretty quick here. We've already addressed the visitors. Normally, I make the visitors that come to the planetarium stand up and give us their name, address, phone number, blood type, and all that. Of course, we can't do that here. So we'll just say, hey, visitors, good to see y'all. And I always try to start the meeting off with something a little lighthearted and, some kind of meme or some kind of fun thing that, kind of just gets people's brains moving. And this was one that I found a couple days ago that I thought was pretty funny. It's definitely a dad joke style thing, but hey, it works, right? So there it is. It definitely does make our day the way the Earth rotates, that's for sure. So I don't know if some of y'all around the globe are dealing with what we are down here in Southeast Texas. This is the back of my car. I think about a week ago or so. And if you can make it out, this was a freshly washed car like the day before, and then this happened. And that is dust all the way from the Saharan desert, or Saharan, however you want to say it. You can see it really well right here. And this was just a preview of the intensity that we got down here. Now, I don't know about Howard and Eddie and them, but down here it's been pretty bad. The allergies have been going crazy, and it's been a weird fiasco. How's it been over there in Killeen, Eddie?
We've gotten dust. You can see it as a haze in the air. We had it bad a couple of weekends ago. I mean, it looked like it was foggy all day long, and the sky was kind of gray, but it never accumulated on vehicles like what you're showing there that I'm aware of.
Yeah. We had quite a bit over in the Conroe area. There definitely had quite a bit, and it did make the sun really hazy when we could see the sun, and it did affect our allergies. Jane and I both had sinus headaches out of the deal.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. I had to get my charger here. I forgot the integral part of running a laptop off the battery during a live stream is not a good idea. So just a little tip there for y'all. Yeah, the dust has been bad. I've been sneezing. My poor cat has been sneezing too. She's been walking around the house just sneezing like crazy. But yeah, so the dust is never fun. And Terry says, who's a local here with us, sorry for the dust. I got a new XYZ, and now all of Texas, Southeast Texas is cursed. Hey, anytime anybody buys some new equipment, we either get rain, hail, dust, whatever it is. So thanks, Terry. You're the man. We appreciate you. So there's that. Now, as we move along here on the meeting, I wanted to bring this up real quick, just briefly. 51 years ago, this very month, being set foot on the moon for the first time, Apollo 11 was the first mission to land on the moon. And you can see the landing site right there. And so my encouragement to all of y'all is at least this month when the moon comes back around, because we're headed towards new moon right now. So it's time for deep sky objects and stuff like that. But when the moon comes back around, see if you can find this spot right here. There's a lot of different ways that you can find it online, whether you're looking it up through Sky Safari, Stellarium, or any one of those apps. This is taken from Sky Safari. But one thing I wanted to bring attention to you was the kind of surrounding area. Now, they landed in the Sea of Tranquility. We all know that, right? Pretty famous speech that they made during that whole thing. And you can see two big craters. I don't know. Does my arrow show up when I do this, guys? Does it show up?
Yes.
I don't see it.
Okay.
Oh, the arrow? No, I don't see the arrow, but I see the two craters on the right side of this.
Yeah, exactly, Howard. They're on the far right side. They kind of look like eyeglasses, if you will. That's Sabine and Ritter, two very famous craters that you need to use as a kind of a starting point for this. But what I do is I look for that Moltke crater, which is, I believe, if I go to let's see, whoops, yeah, that one right there. So you can see Moltke is right there. Now, this is the area with no annotations. Okay, so if you look at the moon, this is what you're going to see. It's going to be a little confusing or whatever. But I found this feature up and to the left. Spoiler alert, because I already kind of blew the surprise there. But it's a lunar Texas. And now this is a Dobsonian view. So it's flipped and reversed, right? So it's just basically upside down. If you look at the moon in a Dobsonian telescope, you're going to see the lunar Texas right here on the edge of the sea. Now, if I see, now that I've drawn it out, you can see pretty clearly the area. But if I take it away, you can still see it, can't you? I mean, it's still kind of there a little bit. Not exactly obvious, but it's a feature for sure. Yeah, and that's a good way to find Apollo 11's landing site, which is right there. So you go kind of in between the lunar Texas Moltke crater area and the Sabine Ritter craters over there, the two eyeglass looking craters over there. It's funny that they're just two perfectly, I mean, the same size and everything right there next to each other. That's pretty rare on the moon, but it does happen. But that's my challenge for y'all for the moon for this month. So get out there and check it out and see if you can spot the lunar Texas as well. It's there, I promise you. But if you look at it in a refractor, it might be a little different. So,
you know, I've always thought the lunar Texas, that's a great picture of it. But when you're looking at it visually with the actual sun hitting at a low angle, it really stands out. To me, it's very apparent.
That's a great point, Eddie. Yeah, because like you said, when as the days change, more and more the moon gets illuminated, or less, depending on which way you're going. But yeah, you're right. That the sun's angle can really affect the view for sure. And Howard, y'all should see some of Howard's lunar sketches. I mean, they basically look better than some of these pictures do. And so, I mean, you know, we're going to talk to Howard about the history of his observing later because it's fascinating, y'all. I mean, right at the very cusp of amateur astronomy being a thing in America, Howard was right on the front lines. And so I can't wait to get to that. So we're gonna keep moving forward here and get to some comments. And I have like 3 or 4 quarters of the board here tonight. So I have some comments later as a president. But what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Howard, see if he has anything he wants to mention as far as officers' comments, and I'll turn over to Eddie for the treasurer's part. So Howard, do you have anything for the officers' comments there?
Well, I just wanted to let everybody know I really appreciate y'all letting me do the newsletter and continue to do it. And it's my only way about these days to do astronomy. And so that gets me going every month to be able to do that. And also, one of the things, though, I wanted to mention, I'm kicking this around. I'm always trying to get articles from our members here, and sometimes they don't respond, and sometimes they do. And I've had some great articles from the members, but I'm not getting enough. So I thought maybe I might pay $1 for an article, and I would mail that $1 out to you in the newsletter. I'll send you a paper copy with it, so you can read and reread your article. And so, anyway, we'll see how that goes. But you have to be in the first 3 articles. I don't want to end up with 30 articles. So, so anyway, if you're in the first 3 articles, we might line your pocket with a little gold. Otherwise, that's about it. Like I say, I enjoy doing the newsletter and hope to continue doing it.
Yeah, absolutely, Howard. We appreciate the newsletter too, because it's always got, Howard puts extra stuff in there all the time that is just fascinating, and typically it's stuff I hadn't even heard of yet. So it's a fantastic thing. And again, if you're a member of our club, you get it as a part of your membership. So it's all the more reason to join. It's a fantastic thing, that's for sure.
And Howard, you do a great job in the newsletter. I always look forward to getting it, and I just had an epiphany. I enjoy reading about other people's observing, and yet I am one of those people you're talking about that never sends in reports about observing. So I promise to be better about that.
I never noticed that, Eddie.
Well, you're going to start noticing it now because I'm going to have a bunch of your dollars.
Yeah. You're gonna get 60 articles by the end of the hour. And Spencer says, I always enjoy the newsletter. I agree, Spencer. That's absolutely for sure. It's a fantastic thing. Absolutely. So, okay, so let's keep on rolling here because we've got a treasurer report, which is Mr. Eddie and Mrs. Cat Trevino. So with that, I will hand it over, Eddie.
Okay, well, it's going to be a very short treasurer report. Got to say, within the last month, we had no new members, and we had no incoming funds, and we had 3 expenditures. I guess you could really say 2, but one of them was separated. It has to do with our website. And then we had to pay our Astronomical League dues. So everybody's an official member now of the Astronomical League. The new members will get their first Reflector magazine, I think the 3rd quarter. So there you go. That's my report.
There it is. I love it. I love short and sweet talks about money because, it's always fun. Money is always fun. And again, write that article for Howard and you'll get a whole $1 silver certificate.
Maybe it's got to be in the first 3 people to send one in.
So get it in quick, y'all. Let's see. Let's go to the next slide, which I have is Amazon Smile. If you do shop on Amazon and you don't have a nonprofit that you support, we would love to get Jeff Bezos's money from you, because every time you spend any money on Amazon and you go to smile.amazon.com and you either search us by this EIN number that's over here, or just by the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas, we get 0.5% of your purchases. Again, that doesn't come out of your pocket. That comes out of Mr. Bezos's pocket. And so far, we have gotten a beautiful amount of money here. I got this. I just pulled these screenshots off of our Amazon Smile stuff. And it says your current charity, which is us, the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas, has received $1,145.17 as of 2 months ago, I guess I should say. So, we probably got a little bit more coming in now because I'm sure I've done some shopping. I'm sure the others have done some shopping as well. But again, if you do want to help support our club, this money does not come out of your pocket. It just from, you clicking a link and going shopping on Amazon, we get 0.5% of that sell. And the middle sort of picture here shows what our club looks like. If you search us, the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas, the year founded and all that will reflect what you see there. And we use it for outreach. And then the very bottom picture, you'll see right under the search bar where it says all, and then a search bar, it says supporting the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas. And basically what that will do is once you see that, you'll know that when you go buy $10,000 worth of Amazon stuff, we'll get 0.5% of that, which is a huge amount of money for our nonprofit astronomy club. And we will take that money that you give us, and the 3 or 4 of us right here will go to Fiji and enjoy beverages. Of course, we'll buy outreach gear and things like that with it. Yeah. Educational materials for the outreach that we do when we do it again. So we would enjoy if y'all shopped with us on there, and it would be amazing if y'all could do that. And Spencer says Amazon now asks once a month if you want to keep using Smile on the app. Yeah, so there you go. That's a good, and so definitely keep doing that and keep giving us your free Jeff Bezos money, because we would love to have it. I'll welcome in a couple of late comers, if you will, Mr. Lester Christopher from the Salt Lake Astronomical Society. Very cool. Good to have you. And Astronomy E-Magazine, Astrophotography E-Magazine. Sorry, finally managed to catch you guys live. Well, welcome. Hopefully we can go in. We can be in your E-Magazine. That'd be pretty cool. We'd all be famous together. It'd be fantastic. Lisa Stewart, another member of our club, says the newsletter is awesome. Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Lisa. You're awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa.
Mr. Ziggy, how you doing? Good to see you. And so I'll keep throwing y'all's comments in as we go. If you do want to join the club, dues for the year are $30 for your whole family. Now we do prorate if it's your first year. So now-ish, it'll be like what, $14 or something, whatever, or a little less than half of $30 is. So if that is something you're interested in, get with me or get with Mr. Eddie here and or Kat, whoever you can grab a hold of first. And we would love to have y'all. And again, you can join from wherever you are in the United States or abroad. And get the benefits of our club, which is the newsletter and all those fun things. And also, you're in the Astronomical League, like Eddie mentioned, which is the national sort of database of amateur astronomers across the nation. So if that's something you're interested in, if you do want to join us, there are avenues to do so, and we'd love to have you. So anything you want to add to that, Eddie, before I just breeze on through this stuff?
No, you did a great job. You covered some good points with the Amazon Smile. I think that's a very beneficial club for our membership. It's going to allow us to do things like buy more gear so that the club members can check it out and also use for outreach.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. So thank you guys. Thank you, Eddie and Kat, for being our treasurers. That's not an easy job, but it's one that pays. Okay. Dumb joke aside. All of our Clavern Park first quarter moon astronomy nights have been canceled for this year. These would have been the dates. I just wanted to mention that we do support our Clavern Park here near Beaumont, Texas, and once all this COVID stuff passes, we'll be right back out there doing some amateur astronomy with the community and with the members. So I just wanted to throw that up real quick and kind of touch base on that again. Again, all of our outreach events, as far as us bringing astronomy to the public locally, have been canceled. We had something coming up on August 1st. I just don't see that happening at all at the Port Neches Library. And the Shangri-La event would have been this fall. We're probably going to just cancel everything out all the way till the end of 2020. There's no sense in us becoming a part of the problem. So we're going to be a part of the solution and just say none of that. Let's just meet online and continue to do what we're doing here. And I think it's been fun so far. So no harm, no foul there. We'll be back stronger than ever after all this passes. And I think it'll be a great thing. So no outreach events coming. We do have a Lunar Telescope program. If you are a member of the club and we know who you are, we know how to get at you. There are some scopes you can take home once we get back into the personal or person-to-person kind of thing. We have a 10-inch and an 8-inch Dobsonian, which are great telescopes to get started with. We have a solar telescope. It's a Lunt 50 mil, which requires a little safety program that you go through just to make sure you know the safety aspects of viewing the sun. And we got some binoculars and other equipment that we have on the list. And it's a wonderful thing. I had that 8-inch Coulter telescope for probably 9 months when I first joined the club. Nobody else wanted it, so I just kept taking it home. And I did over half of my Messier list on that little 8-inch telescope. And that was a huge thing for me. So, again, it's a part of our member perks if you are indeed a member. And here's some other member perks, which are a club newsletter, again, which we're going to talk about. You get the Astronomical League Awards, which we could talk about later. We don't have any awards to give out this month, but basically, if you do some observing, you turn in your logs, you can get an award, which is a certificate and pin, and it's always a cool thing. You'll be on our mailing list, so you'll know when we're going to start having in-person meetings again. You get the Reflector magazine, like Eddie mentioned, which is a quarterly publication. And if you do one of those awards that I was talking about, you get your name printed in that magazine, which is pretty amazing to flip through and be like, oh, there I am. Or you see one of your buddies from a local club or another club. It's always a cool thing. And again, $30 a year for your whole family. Or if you wanna join for your first year, we prorate you, or just make the donation. We would love it either way. So there it is. One thing I do want to talk about before we get into too many more things to talk about. Jupiter is back on the rise, and I put this in here because PowerPoint now has 3D models, and I'm not exactly sure why or what the goal is there, but hey, I was like, if they're going to put it in here, then I'm going to use it. And this is what you'll see if you look at Jupiter: two big red bands that we call the north and south equatorial belts. You can see the great red spot there, which is a hurricane size of 2 or 3 Earths that has been blowing on Jupiter for hundreds and hundreds of years. Jupiter is a fantastic object in a telescope. It's one thing that you definitely should get a chance to look at, and they're back on the rise. I think now you may basically wait till midnight or so, and you should be able to get them pretty good up in the sky. And of course, as the year goes on, they'll start rising earlier and earlier, and we'll give you an opportunity to view them earlier and earlier as time goes on. So be aware that those 2 bright stars over there are not stars. It's actually Jupiter and Saturn. So put your scope on there and see what you can see. You'll never be disappointed, I promise you, unless it's cloudy or something. Then of course you won't be too impressed.
Never pass up a chance to look at Jupiter or Saturn. Honestly, Jupiter, you think it's the same thing every time. It's not, because of the moons that orbit it. It's always a different appearance. And the bands, I can remember a few years ago, the north equatorial band just disappeared, and then it came back. And I don't know why it did that.
Yeah, I think it was the south one though. But yeah, like he said, yeah, sometimes the cloud layers just go over the top of the band, and it disappears, and it's like, okay. And I think it's like every 15 years or so, Howard, isn't it something like that? It tends to do it, it seems like.
I'm really not familiar with that things that happen on Jupiter, and as far as that disappearing on a regular basis, that I know it had in the past, at different times, but I didn't know it was kind of a regular thing.
Yeah, I think it's happened twice in my observing career. It's the only reason that I think I had heard the 15 years thing, which of course it's not like it's on a regular schedule. It just sort of goes away, like Eddie said. Like one day you're looking at like, what in the world? Where'd the other band go? It just completely vanishes, but then it comes back like clockwork, which makes it cool because when it does disappear, the great red spot, which is about to come around, sticks out like a sore thumb, and you can really see the great red spot, which you can kind of see is kind of buried inside that band a little bit there.
Right. I just wanted to mention that on the red spot, the recent pictures that are kind of the 3D type thing, I mean, you can literally look down into the red spot, with the walls around it, like you would see the eye of a hurricane and from space. And so very interesting.
Absolutely. Like Eddie said, there's never pass up a chance to view the biggest planet in our solar system, because it's never going to be the same. Its rotational period, what you're seeing here, is once every 9 hours. So a day is 9 hours long on, a full 24-hour day is 9 hours on Jupiter. So if you saw it last night, probably different. So get out and view Jupiter. It's just a fascinating planet. And then right next door, this is a really horrible 3D version of Saturn, but it's what they gave us. So I'll just quickly say, look at Saturn, because right now the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the Earth, but we're losing that. And slowly over time, these rings are going to become more edge-on. So over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, this beautiful panorama of the rings that you see will change. And eventually, like in 2008 or 9, I think, when I first started getting back into astronomy as an adult, the rings were like somebody drew a line right across Saturn. It was the craziest thing. And then now we're looking at the northern hemisphere top. And so again, after it goes through the flat stage, we'll see the southern hemisphere for several years. And I don't think we'll see the northern hemisphere again until the 2040s. So if you want to see the northern hemisphere of Saturn, you better get out there and do it, because it's going to be a minute before we get to see the hexagon up north and all that again. So again, like Eddie said, never pass up an opportunity to view these planets. It's just fantastic stuff. It'll blow your mind. And kids, every time we do an outreach event, when we show them Saturn, that, you know, wow is an overused word, but some of these kids are like, that's fake. And you're like, no. Well, look in there again. You wave your hand in front of the telescope. They see it sort of blur out, and, you know, they get the picture, literally. So have a look, guys. I promise you it won't disappoint. I
think the rings do a cycle about 11 years. Does that sound right to you? From
tilting, something like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think one year, I guess, or one season on Saturn is about 11 years, which is a long time. That's a long winter. I bet it's cold there in the winter too. Quickly as we're moving on, guys, if you haven't heard of Comet, 2020 F3, I think, NEOWISE.
NEOWISE.
Yeah, which is NEOWISE is a survey that does near Earth objects, which we definitely want to be aware of near Earth objects because they are near Earth. But sometimes NEOWISE and some of these other sky surveys, they catch these comets that come out of nowhere on us and brighten up like Hale Bopp. Now, this is the brightest naked eye comet that we have had since the 90s, I believe. Now, there was Pan-STARRS, which was an evening comet, maybe back in 2012, 2013 or so. And then there was one in 2016, but they were not anywhere near this bright. Have either of you guys heard of a magnitude on this thing? I haven't even heard of a magnitude. I just know it's insanely bright.
I think on Heavens Above, they were saying the other day, plus 1.4, I think, 1.4, 1.8, maybe, I don't know, but a little brighter than second magnitude.
Wow. That's fantastic. And you can see the tail here. This is a friend of mine, Stephen Hummel, which most of y'all are familiar with if you've been watching the McDonald Observatory live broadcasts. Stephen is a master at observing and photography. And so this picture was actually taken up on Mount Locke, which is, or near Mount Locke at the McDonald Observatory. You can see their new radio dish, which they're measuring quasars. Guys, get this. With that dish right there, they're measuring quasars so that they can measure the movement of Earth's crust. Wrap your head around that. All these distant objects that they're measuring out there, they can actually understand how the Earth's crust moves in relation to these objects that are millions and millions of light years away, sometimes billions of light years away, these quasars.
That's crazy. I mean, those are some of the farthest objects in our universe, I guess, our galaxy. Well, they'd be outside of our galaxy, wouldn't they?
Yeah, all the quasars are definitely outside, and that's it is what it is. But they're definitely far away. They all have a signature. They all have a specific frequency that they tick or beep or whatever you want to say at. And so it's like a fingerprint. No quasar is alike, and you can actually use those for navigation in space. Which, if you're a spacefaring species, that's how you're going to navigate through the world. Right there is with those quasars. So again, Stephen Hummel, round of applause, man.
Yeah.
Beautiful photo. There's been some beautiful photos all over the internet about this comet, guys. If y'all aren't looking around on, there's all kinds of resources out there for these comets, whether it's a Facebook group or Cloudy Nights or wherever you want to go. Some amazing stuff. And so Stephen did a great job there. I was waiting for his picture. Now, this one was taken from the International Space Station, from what I understand.
Wow.
And you can see the comet there, which is that's a nice place to view a comet from. I can tell you that much. And you can see the Earth's right there, and the atmosphere. It's beautiful, beautiful picture. I think this is maybe that picture not blown up. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I can't attribute these pictures. I can't remember where I got them. I stole them off some internet Google search. So sorry to whoever did that. But you can kind of see the Pleiades off over here to the left a little bit near the station. So that gives you an idea of where it is. And now what we'll do is we'll probably keep going through the meeting here, and we'll talk about where you can see NEO-WISE coming up over the next few weeks. It's a morning comet right now, but it's very steadily going below the horizon as the sun comes up. So it's actually going to switch places from a morning to an evening comet, and it's going to be very quick when it does that. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes, and we'll keep going through some of the stuff that I got here, because some of the stuff we're going to get through really quick. Speaking of the International Space Station, if you're on planet Earth and near the Beaumont, Texas area, you can expect to see the International Space Station on all of these dates and times below. I know this is a lot of table information that, it's maybe a little confusing if you've never looked at it before. Basically, date is on the left and then brightness is next to it. And just like in golf, the best thing is to see a negative score, if you will. So the bigger the negative number or the smaller the negative number, like -3 is insanely bright, whereas -1 is not as bright, but still very bright. So you can see there, I've highlighted a few of those out for those of y'all that want to check those out. We've got one coming up on the 13th, which is just a couple days away. And you can see right there in the middle where it says highest point, that's going to be your real indication there whether or not the pass is going to be good. Anything over 30 degrees or so, 30 or 40 degrees is going to be a good pass. You're going to see it nice and bright. That one red arrow is one for a morning pass. That's at 5:55 a.m. That's Beaumont time here in Central Time here in Texas. You see 64 degrees is pretty good pass. But over the next several days, we're going to have a lot of really good passes. And so get out and say hello to America's astronauts in space yet again. Bob and Doug are up there on the, from the SpaceX mission. They're still up there. So get out and wave to them as they go by. I think they enjoy that. They probably see you. Probably know. Part of the newsletter that Howard does for us every month is the calendar. I always love these calendars. I always show them at the in-person meetings when we have them, because he always puts all kinds of really cool information in there. You see on the 29th of this month, NASA was founded in 1958. That's just awesome stuff to see. Oh, look, July 16th, comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 hits Jupiter in 1994. That was a pivotal moment for this guy right here. That whole moment changed my life, and that was really where my astronomy awakening started beginning back in those days. You can see here we are at the 10th, which is where we're doing the meeting. Back in 2015, you had New Horizons flying past Pluto, and you can see that we're coming up on new moon, which is the 20th of July. So just about 2 weeks away, and or less than that now, about a week and a half or so. And we're going to have no moon, but then again, right at the end of the month, we'll get it back again. And the Delta Aquariid meteors, is that going on now, Howard, or is that more toward the end of the month?
No, that's at the end of the month on the 28th, 29th, and 30th. But they last, a week before and a week after, but this is the peak time at the last week of the month. Gotcha.
Meteor showers are always fun, y'all. Don't miss one of those. We got another good one coming up later this month, in August, the Perseids. That's my favorite meteor shower, I think, is the Perseids. So hope everybody had a happy July 4th. Hope y'all didn't pop too many fireworks and stay up too late and get too crazy. But if you did, hey, that's all part of the thing, right? It's part of summer. Observing reports. I've been observing a lot of dust lately. Howard, Eddie, have y'all been doing any observing?
I've been getting every morning to go out and look for that comet, but the clouds, even though it's clear during the day, for some reason, early morning, it's cloudy around here. And so I've been able to see it.
Plus, yeah, it has been over here at Conroe also cloudy in the morning and high fog, a little bit of fog in there. So by the time it burns off, it's too late because the window to observe it is very small.
Yeah, Spencer says nothing to report. So he hasn't been out observing very much. And that's kind of the story around here. we kind of entered a monsoon season. It felt like down here in Southeast Texas anyway, where it was just like every day was either cloudy or rainy or both. And so, you know, it hadn't been a whole lot of fun stuff going on. But if you do have the chance, guys, get out and observe. Even on those hot summer nights, sometimes you'll be surprised what you can see. Just get a fan, run a fan out there and have it cool you down a little bit if you can. So that's a good way to do it. So get out and observe and come report, and then send Howard an article, and send him your observing reports. He'll send you $1.
I will.
So the Okie-Tex Star Party is the next one that's coming up. If it does indeed happen, that's in September 11th through the 19th. They do have a COVID contingency plan, which is, I think, August 11th. Don't quote me on that date too accurately, but somewhere in that August 10th, 11th region, they're going to make a go or no go on this Star Party, which is right there where you see the little star at the Oklahoma Panhandle, and some of the darkest skies in America right there. And I'm not even joking. It is insanely dark at this Star Party. And it's well worth the drive. Even if you're coming from New York and you're driving, 2,000 miles, it's very well worth it. There are people that do that every year to go to Okie-Tex for that very reason. It's at Camp Billy Joel, which I think is, I'll always say Joel because Billy Joe is funny, but Billy Joel is hilarious. If you're an 80s music fan. But you can see the sort of the elevation and the latitude, longitude there. It's a great Star Party. But again, August 11th, they're going to decide whether or not it's a go. And then you have to have your registration, your pre-registration in by August 22nd. So if you're going to wait like me until August 12th to decide if you're going, then, you can pay your dues then or pay your pre-registration up till the 22nd and you're good to go. But otherwise you can pay now and then decide if you want your money back if they cancel, or you can make that money a donation. Either way, they are building a building on site now. They have the frame up for the building. So if you know anything about Okie-Tex, the basketball court is no more. Say sayonara to the basketball court. It is now a metal building. Well, going to be. The skeleton is up. The slab has been poured. The electrical and plumbing are all in place. So all they really need to do now is put the walls up, which is pretty exciting for those of us that go to Okie-Tex on the regular. The weather can get pretty crazy there. And so having a hard walled building, I think, will be very beneficial to all of us for sure. And, Howard and Eddie, two Okie-Tex regulars here, and even Kat's been to more than a few.
I've been about, I think 12 times. I've been 12 years to it.
Wow.
It's
anyway,
a Star Party. Some of the darkest skies, as Will said, it's the darkest sky I've ever experienced.
All right. We've had 1 year, we had 2 nights, we had the Aurora Borealis there, and we had the Okie-Tex hurricane 1 year, and we have had great flyovers of airplanes have been spectacular at times, and of course the scenery around there, the geological formations are unbelievable also, and you can walk in the steps of a dinosaurs if you want.
Lots of area attractions, great day hikes. Like Howard said, there's dinosaur tracks not far. There's an extinct volcano about a 30 or 40 minute drive from the camp there. It's a really cool area. I mean, you throw a rock the wrong way, you're in New Mexico, and if you slip and fall the other way, you're in Colorado. It's like it's right there, and it's literally where they call it 3 corners. You got Colorado, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. There's a little monument out there too, which is fantastic.
Right.
So go if you want to, and if it goes and if it's safe. So, but more than likely, I'll be out there, and I think maybe even Eddie and Kat and some of the other club members that are here in the audience might even be going with us. So hopefully we do see y'all out there. And another one right after that, I did want to mention, very briefly, is the El Dorado Star Party. And again, I'm going to keep talking to these. It's July, so August, September, as the meetings go by, we'll keep mentioning these, and we'll keep y'all updated on the the current status. As you can see, they have a coronavirus statement as well, which I'll go ahead and put up. It's October 12th through the 17th, so just a month later after Okie Tex. But you know, their statement was put out at the end of May. And I'm not going to sit here and read it all. I'm just going to say that it's basically, social distancing is important, wearing a mask, hand sanitizer, keeping your hands clean, be respectful of others, and stay, a little further back as we go through these tough times. And, all the normal stuff. Just, if you care about your community and your friends and your neighbors, do these simple things. It's pretty simple to kind of do this stuff. And, again, if these star parties go on, we're going to need these kind of systems in place. And hopefully everybody can get on board with all that. These are great star parties. I hate to see them canceled this year. But again, if it needs to happen, then it needs to happen. And that's the way it goes. But if you have questions about star parties or anything like that, you can always hit up one of the guys over here on the panel, myself included, and ask questions. Or, we can send y'all videos and things like that will get you a little bit more squared away as far as getting the lay of the land and how everything goes and all that. So, but definitely, if you're never been to a star party, definitely need to do one. If not this year, then next year in 2021 for sure.
El Dorado, great first star party. Will, I just want to mention that it's not that far away. It's closer to home than some of the other ones.
Absolutely.
The family that runs the X Bar Ranch, they're gracious and very accommodating. It's got some great geography as well and hiking trails, and it's a great star party. It was my first one, I think, and it's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of my first as well. Hodges Gardens was really my first, but El Dorado was really the first big one. And Howard Miner right here down below me was always like, you need to go to these star parties. You need to get out there and get in the mix of these things. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, maybe I'll go. And then went to Hodges Gardens and then El Dorado, like Eddie said. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is something I'm definitely doing for a long, long time. So thank you, Howard, for that.
Yeah. Howard, mentor.
100%. 100%. So if we go to this little slide here, this little slide is something that Howard has prepared for us. And you'll notice that this is a paper star chart, which is something that many of us might not even be very familiar with how they work. But they do exist, paper star charts, and you can actually open them up and read them. They don't even require batteries. You can't zoom in, though, unfortunately, unless you have a magnifying glass.
You can get closer down or farther away.
But a little closer, yeah. So Howard, why don't you tell us about what all this stuff means, and what all these check marks here? What's going on here?
Well, I'll tell you what. 10 years ago, approximately, I guess. See, I'm 80 years old now, so sometimes I forget exactly what the date was. But anyway, and things go in and out of my mind. But anyway, back about 10 years ago, I did the globular cluster certificate program with the Astronomical League. And so at that time, I was using the Sky and Telescope Sky Atlas 2000. And I'd go through that atlas and I would check off all the things in the atlas with a little check mark when I was getting ready to view those objects. And then when I had seen them, then I would either erase them out or put another little check mark across it or something like that. But anyway, this little area right here in Sagittarius, you all can see that. We're looking at the teapot in Sagittarius. And the whole constellation of Sagittarius has 21 globulars in the constellation. But just right around the teapot area right here is 13 globular clusters, which include the huge one of Messier 22. And many of those, actually, there's 5 out of the 13. 5 of these globulars are Messier objects. So what does that tell you? That tells you that, even if you have a smaller telescope, you can still easily see these globular clusters. And so you don't want to get discouraged as a deep sky object that this is something they won't be able to see, because you will. And and then in our whole galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, there's 158 globulars. And so there's a lot out there to be able to see. And most in a small telescope, you can see those things. Once in a while, there's a really faint one, and it might take an 8-inch or something like that, or a 10-inch to see it. But most likely, it's all can be seen in a pretty small telescope. And so I just wanted to, I marked those all out with a little yellow and a check mark there. And certainly M22 is the big standout. And it is, and one reason it's such a large globular cluster to us, it's one of the closer globulars to Earth, so, in our solar system. So it's relatively easy to resolve and enjoy. And so anyway, Sagittarius is a constellation, and of course all of them have a little bit of mythology, and it's the Archer. And the Archer is a half man and half something. half horse and a half man. And
yeah.
He has his bow and arrow aimed at Scorpius, to the heart of Scorpius, which is what is Antares, and so that's the heart of Scorpius. And so they have a little bit of story between the two, which I'm not going to go into. Sagittarius is also my favorite constellation, and the reason for it is very simple. Is the teapot. The asterism is very distinct, and it's just fun to navigate around in it and near it. And there's so many showpieces around in Sagittarius and the teapot that you just can't stay away from that constellation when it's up here, like during the summer. And so there's just more wow objects in that area. And a lot of it you can view with binoculars. And one of the little things is back in the 50s, 40s, when I was starting out to observe, people didn't talk about binoculars, but they talked about field glasses. So any kind of an optical binocular was a field glass. So I thought that was kind of interesting that that's something that's kind of changed over time. And but you always had field glasses if you're an old fogey like me.
Howard, that's what I'm going to start calling my binoculars from now on. Field.
That's right.
Field glasses.
That's right.
So anyway, like I say, I've talked a little bit about the globular clusters, and what I wanted to encourage you to do is to just get out and look for these things, because it's not a big deal. And especially these days with your little computer-driven telescope, you can go right to them. Where back in my day, I had to labor for hours and hours and hunt these things down. And sometimes it would take us several nights to find something. And so you guys are also lucky. But anyway, you all might want to know what a globular cluster is, some of you. And it's just nothing more than a tightly packed, symmetrical collection of stars. And in some cases, like Omega Centauri, you know, you're talking about maybe 1 million stars in the thing. All globular clusters don't have 1 million stars. Some of them may only have 50,000. But there are stars that are very tightly packed, and in many cases, less than 5 light years apart from each other. So globular clusters are kind of a fun thing, I thought. And even my wife, Jane, she did the globular cluster certificate. And so I was very proud of her with that. And she hunted down most of them all by herself. So, and without a computer. And so anyway, and another thing I wanted to mention about globulars is after you find one, what do you do with it? And so anyway, what do I do? Well, you look for different things in detail in the globular cluster. And one of the things you might want to know is how faint it is. And, you know, can you see it well or not see it well? Can you see it with direct vision, or do you have to kind of peek out of the corner of your eye and see it with averted vision? And so like the slide that Will has up there now, from the little one at the top to the bottom one down there, they're all, depends on what size telescope you have. And not only that, what power you're using. On globular clusters, you want to use as high a power as possible to pull out the detail. And then you want to know, like, does it have a very bright core to it, or is the cluster loosely packed and there's really not a central core, but everything is maybe even kind of drifts and looks like more like an open cluster? It's possible. But anyway, I just wanted to show that the power you use, and of course the size of your telescope. When you have a giant telescope like Bill Christian and Will has a pretty good one, and Roger Dillon certainly has a nice one, and they can put bigger powers on the telescope, higher powers, they get to see, they can resolve those clusters very nicely. So that's your whole key right there, is trying to resolve the clusters and what you can come up with. But that's basically all I had on the globulars, and I just wanted to mention that to you.
And I think I got your slides out of order there, Howard. I'm sorry.
Well, it really doesn't make too much of a difference, but this is kind of what we talked about there from the mythology and sky by the eye. You know, naked eye is a great way to do a little something, especially if you have a problem, either from a physical problem or what have you, that naked eye observing, is nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with using binoculars. But of course, I kind of like going the biggest way possible and like those Dobbs. So anyway, I like asterisms. That's kind of a neat thing of the sky. And Will is one, he's in, I don't know how many asterisms you've invented up there, come up with and thought of, but that's kind of neat. and so that's probably about all I have on that. And that you can start your list by contacting the Astronomical League, and they'll have their list prepared for you and the rules that you need to follow to do that. And, you know, pretty much you can go through the thing in a couple months, I would say, if you get decent weather. If not, it might be a couple years. But it's all worthwhile and really teaches you how to observe. And of course, with the computer telescopes, you can do them a lot faster than what I did.
And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail toward the end here, because, yeah, I mean, like you said, Howard, we have all these fun apps, and, you know, we can just get on a computer and Google search NGC 6626. And, you know, back in those days, y'all had to have paper charts. You had to kind of know where you were looking in the sky. And then you had to get your telescope over there somehow and start kind of searching around. Is this it? Or is this little fuzzy thing over here it? And star hopping. Yeah, of course, which is a tried and true way to find things. I can promise y'all that. But like I said, we're going to talk about some of the way that amateur astronomy has changed over the years here in a second, because it's just fascinating. So very good, Howard. Thank you and the asterism of the teapot is a great one. It's one of my favorites as well, because it's just right there. It's obvious. It's a teapot. Look at the spout and the hand. I mean, it's all right there. It's just like the song.
That particular constellation, Sagittarius, is great to lay out on a lawn chair on a summer night with a pair of binoculars and just scan the sky. There's so much that you're going to see there. You're going to be amazed if you just look.
Yeah.
You're right into the Milky Way.
That's right. Yeah, right out of the little tip of the teapot there is where it is really the thickest. That's actually the core of our Milky Way. But what I think you meant, Eddie, was field glasses. So
that's what I meant, field glasses.
And Mr. Spencer Pratt comes in and says opera glasses are actually good too. The Vixen 2.1 by 42 Galilean opera glasses are amazing in dark skies. Yeah, those are the craziest things. If you ever get a chance to look through some of those Vixen wide field binoculars, it basically makes the pupil of your eye from this to this. So you see a lot more. So it's always a cool thing. And then Jeff from, I'm not sure where Jeff is from, but he says, I'll never forget seeing my first globular cluster last winter with my Orion XT8 push 2 scope. Was like a shotgun spread of stars. That's a great way to kind of describe it there. Like it's diffuse at the edge and tight in the middle. He says bright core. It's like you could throw a dart and not miss a star. So awesome. What a great way to put it. Absolutely. Lloyd Overcash says my first visual object was M13 and he was hooked from there. There you go. That's a good one. That's a great globular cluster right there.
Yeah.
Lloyd, yes, mine was Orion Nebula. I saw it last winter. There you go. There's nothing wrong with that either. So great job, guys, getting out there and observing and doing the thing. That's amazing stuff.
Yeah, all showcase pieces there.
Absolutely. That's a great term for it. That's what we call them, because if you want to really wow the people, you got to show them stuff like M22 up there, or M13 or M42, one of the M's. Just grab an M and shove it in someone's face, and they won't be disappointed, I promise you. So that's awesome, Howard. Thank you for that. We appreciate that.
Good job, Howard.
We do have awards, but we don't have anybody sort of log in their or we may have people logging observations, but we don't have anybody turning in awards. So we're not going to really touch too much on that. Just know that if you become a member of the Astronomical League, which is what the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas is under, if you become a member of the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas, you're a member of the Astronomical League, and you get all these all the access to these amazing awards. And basically, if you go out and you observe the objects like Howard did, he went and found all the globular clusters on the list, wrote them down in date, time, location, where he was, doing all that fun stuff, what telescope and equipment he was using. And then there's also a little description and classification for those globulars. You go through that, and if you mess it up on your first few, that's not the point. What the point is that you do the whole list, logging as you go, and you learn as you go. You don't have to start it perfect and finish it perfect. You just have to do it. And I guarantee you these awards will change your observing. They changed mine forever. So it's one of those things, and there's one for the moon, there's one for the sun, a couple for the sun. And then there's some for deep sky objects, whether it's galaxies, planetary nebulas, globular clusters, like Howard had said. Just so many that it's impossible to name them all. But I did want to shoot a quick shout out to the Astronomical League for those awards, because those are a beautiful thing, for sure. And everybody on this panel actually holds several awards. I know myself and Howard hold more than 10. Howard Miner is a master observer, and when you get to the point of having 10 awards from the AL, which means you've observed probably close to 1,000 objects, typically, with the amount of objects they have on these things. By the time you're done, you're a master observer, and Howard was a master observer, and that inspired me to go get my master observer certificate. I came in a few years after him, of course, but we're both in there, and I think Eddie's working on his master observer certificate slowly but surely over there.
When you become a master observer, that qualifies you to go get hot chocolate at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That is right. Eddie, how close are you to master observer, man? You've been long and hard. I know you have.
You know, not as close as I would like to be. I've got 4 solid awards, and I'm working on a 5th. But there's one observing list that you have to do, and that's the Herschel 500, and that's a lot of observing. So that
took me 4 years.
Yeah.
Me too. It took exactly. I started the Herschel 400 in 2012.
Yeah.
And I didn't finish it until 2016, I guess it was. I forget. It was 4 years at any rate. And Howard is the one who got me started on that. He's like, hey, start looking at some of these Herschels while you get a chance, you know? And so I was like, okay. So I would go over to his scope and be like, what NGC number was that again, Howard? And I'd go log it in my Herschel 400 list, and maybe I'd get 2 or 3 a night. But then over time, I got my other lists out of the way and just started focusing on the Herschels. And hey, eventually, if you keep chipping away at something, eventually you'll see the sunlight at the end of the tunnel. So do it. That's our challenge to you, for sure. Okay, so we're going to keep on trucking here. We're almost to the end, because actually, boom, we got some solar activity going on the sun. Now, a lot of y'all that know about the sun, you know that we've been in a solar minimum for a little while, and bringing us out of those horrible days of solar minimum is Mr. Eddie Trevino, and he's gonna talk to us a little bit about what's going on the sun, man. What's going on up there besides Lloyd's amazing picture there?
Well, let me get myself set up, and what I'm going to do is talk about exactly what you said. I'm going to talk about the last 30 days of what's been going on the surface of the sun, the disk, the Earth side that we can see. There's a lot going on that I'm not going to talk about. I don't have the time, and there's a lot of stuff that I don't even understand happens on the sun. But am I on screen sharing, Will?
Yes, you are. I got you up there.
Okay, so as Will said, we're in a solar minimum, and that's an 11-year cycle. And as you can see by the chart, we're right at just coming out of the bottom of that minimum. And it's not like a light switch, you know, it's not like one day we're here and the next day we're at the next solar cycle. It's like a cusp. We've seen the last solar cycle was solar cycle 24. And we're coming out of it, and we're coming into 25. So these sunspots, we can tell if they're cycle 24 or they're cycle 25 by their polarity. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the thing is, back when it was solid 24, we still saw a few 25s. And now we're coming into 25, we're still seeing a few 24s. Okay, so what I want to talk about is I put together this little calendar, I guess, and it starts June 1st. And the first number, can you see my cursor?
I can.
Okay, good. So this first number is going to be the sunspot, or the area of activity. And the next one's going to be the current stretch of spotless days. And then the next number is the total number of spotless days in 2020. So on the first, no sunspots. On the second, we had 2764. And we could tell it was a new solar cycle 25 sunspot. So that took the current stretch of sunless days to 0. So that's how you would interpret that. And of course, the 121 stayed 121. As you can see, there's 2 sunspots in this span of days. This is about 2.5 weeks. So the 2764 lasted 1 day. 2765, you can see, lasted almost 2 weeks. It lasted 14 days. So that's pretty phenomenal for a sunspot. So let's go look at 2764 first. 2764 was a cycle 25 sunspot, and I don't see it. I see this area here of solar activity, but I don't see a spot proper. I blew it up down here. Maybe I caught a bad picture. All these pictures are from cloudynights.com. It's a great site for solar observation, and they cover other areas of sciences too. But this was on the second, and it's 2764. Don't see it. So on the 3rd through the 16th was 2765. It was also a cycle sunspot. And so as you can see, the sunless days stayed 0 throughout all this time. And the total of sunless days was the same as well. So here was 2765. And this was a big sunspot. And I got this picture off the internet, a photographer by the name of Alan Friedman. That is just a beautiful picture of a sunspot. Mm-hmm. There's so much detail. The dark in the middle, that's the umbra, and this outside is the penumbra. So what's interesting about the way they number these sunspots is that they don't actually number the sunspot. They number the active region. So this whole area is an active region. And within the active region, you have all these sunspots, and that would give you the sunspot number for the day. So that's just a nice little tidbit, and it's easy to see in this beautiful picture.
Absolutely, that's amazing.
So I talked about the magnetic polarity of the sunspots, and that's one of the ways that we can tell what solar cycle we're in. So here's a good example. This picture was taken with my new magneto filter on my telescope. No, that's a joke. There's no such thing. Actually, to capture this picture is some pretty high-tech equipment that we don't have access to. And this isn't even a visual picture. They take data and then they colorize it to develop this magnetogram. And it shows the magnetic field lines that are coming at us and then going away from us back to the sun. And it all originates on the sun. So for solar cycle 25, what you see in the southern hemisphere, the bottom half of the disk, everything rotates from your left to the right. You see a negative leading active region. So negative leads positive on the southern hemisphere. On the northern hemisphere, you'll notice that the colors are exactly opposite. So on the northern, you have positive leading negative. And that's how we know that we're in sun cycle 25. Sun cycle 24 sunspots were exactly opposite. And I've got a pretty good example of that one later. So this is 2765 as it rolled onto the limb of the sun. Here I've got a video of 2765 that took place over the 2 weeks. I did the best that I could to catch it. I want to point out that it is the largest spot of this new cycle 25. I think that's good news. That's great news. And for perspective, down here at the bottom, you can see the size of the Earth. So I'm going to start the video, and I'll play it a couple of times so you can see it. But there it is rolling across the bottom. You can see it develops other sunspots, and then they disappear. But that main sunspot, it just keeps it stays. Now it rolled around to the back of the sun, and then it must have degraded because we didn't see it roll back on. Had it rolled back on, it would have gotten a different sunspot number. It would have been the same sunspot with a different number, but that's just the way we labeled them. So I'm going to play it again, and I want to point out something. It's far enough from the equator, and that's another indication that it's a new solar cycle sunspot. They start down here at high latitudes, they call it. It could be in the southern equator or it could be in the northern equator. What you'll notice about sunspots, if you look at them long enough, is at the equator, they rotate through a lot quicker. So the sun doesn't spin all at the same time. It's got a differential rotation because it's not a solid. So I'll play that one more time. You can watch the sunspot and ooh and all you want. I think it's great. I think it's amazing that it's as big as the Earth. That it was a nice sunspot, and I'm sorry I missed it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go on to the next one. Here's a video of the magnetogram, same sunspot. Now what you're seeing here is not it. This is an active region, and this is an active region, but neither one of these got named. So I'm going to start it, and you'll see the magnetogram of that same sunspot, 2765, come through. So I'm going to, oh, I didn't mean to do that. What I want to do is pause it so that I can point something out. There it is, negative leading positive, and in the northern hemisphere, positive leading negative. So they're opposite, even though this did not develop into sunspots, but this did. So it looks a lot bigger when you're looking at the magnetogram. Again, there's the Earth size for reference. So I thought that was interesting.
These are absolutely massive regions, and then you forget about this stuff in between these cycles, it seems like.
So after that sunspot rotated off the face of the disk, on the 17th, it went blank, and it was blank for 10 days. I mean, it looked pretty much like this. So no active regions to speak of, and no spots. Now, as you'll see later, sometimes active regions develop and it looks like they're going to make a sunspot, but they don't actually make a sunspot. And so they don't get named, not because there was no sunspot, but because the active region didn't stick around long enough. It has to be observed by 2 independent observatories before they'll give it a number. So for 10 days, no.
I love it.
Here's the next half of that month, and here's that 10-day window where we had nothing. And then on the 28th, we had a little activity. So you can see the sunspot number went to 0, or spotless days went to 0, but the number of total days still went up. So let's look at what happened on the 28th. Here, down here at the bottom, is an active region, and it looked like it wanted to make a sunspot. If it had been maybe further over where we could have observed it longer, it may have developed a spot, but as it rolled right off the limb, so it never received an official number. And then here's the one that happened on July 1st. I don't see it in this big picture. It's very, very difficult to see. So I blew it up and circled it, but that's it right there. It struggled to come out. It didn't stick around long enough to get numbered. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, but they're trying to come out. And as I said before, they're close to the poles. So that's an indication that they're from the new solar cycle. Here's one that happened on the 3rd that it did never materialize into an active sunspot long enough to receive a number. Okay, so that covered the 28th, the 1st, and the 3rd. So now here we are on the July 4th, and we have 2766. This one did get numbered, but it's an old solar cycle sunspot, and we're going to see why. It was a very small sunspot, as you can see here, and it emerged near the equator. That's an indication that it is an old solar cycle sunspot. And we're going to look at, there's the next day. And I made a little video in white light, so we're going to look at that go across. Looks like I neglected to put the Earth as scale here, but there's that little sunspot. It's not much, but it stuck around long enough to get numbered, which is pretty cool. I think it's enough. If anyone wants to see it again, I'm just going to move on.
Okay.
I say I am, but then I don't.
That little thing was just a vapor of nothing.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you the magnetogram on that. Now, this isn't it. This is just an active region, never developed a sunspot. So here we go. Let's hope I can stop this when I need to. Notice that sunspot on the bottom has got the negative leading positive, okay? So this is it. This is in the northern hemisphere, and everything should be white followed by black, but it's black followed by white, like in the southern hemisphere, but it's in the north. So that's how we know it's old solar cycle 24. And also the low latitude, close to the equator. But you can see it looks a little bigger in the magnetogram, but it's still small, very small. And you can see all that other active region that never developed any spots and didn't stick around long enough to get numbered. Okay, so that covers the month. As you can see, everything in yellow had a sunspot. This pale yellow was active regions that didn't quite make sunspots, but it's not bad. We had a pretty good run of new solar cycle sunspots, and we even had a couple of days of old solar cycle sunspots. So I feel like this is a good indication because we're deep in solar minimum, and to have this many sunspots that are from the new solar cycle is very encouraging. Okay, so I'm going to show you one more time that 2765, the one that stuck around for that many days, in white light, because then we're going to look at it in a different wavelength. So we remember seeing this, pretty nice sunspot. Now I'm going to show it to you in a different wavelength. This wavelength would be very similar to what you'd see in one of the hydrogen alpha scopes. Maybe not so much detail, but very similar. What you're going to see along the edge is a lot of prominences. Now these prominences happen all over the surface of the sun, but we don't see them because we're seeing edge on, straight on. We'll see them when they roll off the limb here, and you're going to see how much activity there is. Here comes that sunspot, and you can see it's really flaring. It actually made a solar flare. It was a B-class solar flare, which is pretty benign. It's a pretty low rating for a solar flare, but that is still like 100 million atomic bombs from World War II's worth of energy in that one instant. So I'm going to show you one more and just a little more different wavelength. And this one, I think, shows a lot of the magnetic flux that happens around these active regions. So there's 2765 rolling off the bottom, and you can see all that incredible. You can't see it visually, of course. This is a very enhanced video, but to think that that's going on at all these sunspots is amazing. And the one here at the top didn't even make a sunspot. It was just an active region. So all this happened in June. And today, we got another blank sun. So sunspot number 0. Current stretch of spotless days has been 4. And for spotless days in 2020, it's 143. And that's my report on the sun for the last month. Anybody have any?
Excellent, Eddie. Yeah, if y'all do have questions for Eddie about the solar cycle, drop them down in the comments and we'll relay those as they come in. Spencer Pratt says he needs to grab a solar scope soon. I would agree. I think it's time that we all dust them off after the past couple of years. Like Eddie said, it's just been a blank sun there. And like you said, it's promising that we're coming out on the other side of that. So I guess the sun is waking up from its nap. It's probably just going to grab some coffee and put on a show for us next few years, I guess. Lloyd says, I have an image of 2765 on my Facebook page. So you'll definitely check out Lloyd's Facebook page. He posts awesome pictures and all that kind of stuff with the sun. Definitely an amazing astrophotographer, Lloyd is. So check his stuff out. Spencer says, awesome, Eddie. I agree. That was great, man. Thank you so much for that.
Glad you enjoyed that. And
absolutely. Say it again, Eddie. Sorry.
And hopefully you learned a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely. Thanks, Eddie.
Absolutely. Okay. So with that, we'll get to some of these little comments that are coming in here for Eddie, which is lots of people that say they enjoy it. Thank you, Bill and Mary. And okay, so we've got a couple of more little things here as we get towards the end. And what I wanted to talk about briefly, sometimes we do these deep sky objects of the month, which are always fun. But the only object I need y'all to go out and look at right now before we lose it to the season is, where's my button here? Oh, wrong thing. What's going on here? There we go. M85. So Messier 85, which happens to be a galaxy in the constellation Virgo. It's in the Virgo supercluster of fun up there and in the summer sky. And it's spring, summer, I guess I should say. We are losing that Virgo cluster of galaxy region. But inside M85, they discovered that little star that this little arrow is pointing to. And that's not an actual star. That's, well, it was a star. It was a star that exploded. And what we call in the business a supernova. Now, a supernova are occurring all the time in galaxies all around the sky. Sometimes they occur when we don't have visual observation of the galaxy. Maybe the sun is in the way or whatever. But this one right now, you can still catch M85 if you got a good horizon to the west and you got a clear open sky over there. Definitely check it out and see if you can find this supernova. You'll see these two bright stars that are sort of off the center of the galaxy there. And the little one is apparently a type 1A supernova, which if I remember right, I think is just a massive star that explodes. A type 2A, I think, is a where a white dwarf has another star in orbit, and then that white dwarf explodes because the other star is feeding material. Complicated stuff. None of us are expert on supernovas, but what's really cool is you can see one star in a galaxy outshine the entire galaxy for a period of about 1 to 2 weeks when these supernovas go off. And so it's something that I think y'all should definitely check out. If you do have a chance to do it. And again, that's Messier 85 or M85. So if you do a quick Google search for Messier 85, you will find it, and go grab your scope and take some images and send them in. We'd love to see them and show them maybe next month on the meeting. So if y'all get out there and do it, Lloyd, if you're listening, get us an image of this and we'll put it up and get you some traffic.
And don't forget to send an observing report to Howard. You might get $1.
That's right. If you get it in fast enough, you might get that crisp dollar.
It might not be crisp.
Yeah, it'll probably be a little wrinkled. Probably been through the wash a couple times. Money laundering. So usually at the end of our meetings, we do a Tonight Sky presentation where we roll a video that the Space Telescope Institute, I think it's who it is, puts those videos out. We're not going to do that tonight because I don't want to sit here and watch a video while we're on the internet where we could all go access videos on our own time. So what I wanted to do as a sort of a way to wrap this whole thing up in a really cool box, I guess, is talk to Mr. Howard Miner here for a second about some of the trials and tribulations that those early astronomers of the late 50s, early 60s had to go through just to observe. And so, Howard, we talked a little bit about how you got started in astronomy, but I don't think maybe we need a little bit more of a well-defined sort of backstory on Mr. Howard Miner and how you got into observing. What happened? How did all that get started?
Well, actually, my real observing didn't happen until late in my observing career. Even though I've been associated with the telescope and a little bit of astronomy since the middle 50s, it's actually in the 90s before I got into doing any serious, I would just call it serious, astronomy. And we lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so I joined, at that time, I had not been a member of an astronomy club, as I was just independent. And so I did join the Tulsa Astronomical Society. And that really got me started going and into doing more detailed work and visualizing just detail in objects where and so that kind of is the short story of the situation. And then and it was more complicated, of course, with since I was doing everything manually and learning as I went, and I'd gone from a 3.5-inch little telescope at the beginning in high school. A neighbor of mine, and we built an equatorial 10-inch telescope, and it was pretty primitive, but it worked good. It had great optics in it from Thomas Cave, and then I moved on in the 80s, and maybe even late 70s, I got my Odyssey 2 17.5-inch scope, and I went with that for 15 years, maybe longer, I guess, about 15 years. And then I had the telescope rebuilt and modernized more or less into one of the good-looking Dobbs. And so anyway, with that scope, I was really, with the 17.5, able to see detail in different galaxies, see detail in the nebulas. And I was buying, the O3 filters and the normal ones that everybody gets these days. And I was starting to get nebula eyepieces. And so my astronomy was upgraded considerable. And, but I've really, the point, at one time, I just never thought I would want to write anything down. And apparently that's the first instinct in most people. But when I did get started doing that, I couldn't stop. And so it just had to continue on, and I wanted to do it in the right way. And when you start out, you know, you're a novice at the stuff. And I did one double star report, you know. I think the Astronomical League guy, whoever was checking that thing, sent it back and said, well, I'm going to give you your certificate, but that was not a very good one, Howard. So anyway, that's the way it went. But anyway,
so I mean,
go ahead.
You know, you were right on the cusp of the amateur astronomy thing. I mean, because, you know, obviously we've had telescopes since the 1600s, and then, you know, Isaac Newton invented the reflector shortly after. But, you know, there really wasn't. Telescopes were expensive and hard to manufacture in those early days, and then even into the 50s and 60s, it wasn't like we have CNC machines now that can just bust these things out. You know, there was people grinding the mirrors and the lenses by hand. And so, but you said earlier to me before we went live, I think you bought your first telescope for, was it $30?
Yeah, well, I didn't buy it. My brother did, and he was stationed in California in the Korean War. And I think in 1953, he brought this little telescope home that was called the Skyscope, and it sold for, I'm pretty sure he said it was $29.95, and it was a 3.5-inch reflector, and it had power of about 35, 3 eyepieces, 35, 70, and 135 power, and they were Ramsden eyepieces. And Ramsden eyepieces back then, they just had your little eyepiece tube, and you could just unscrew your tube and take out the lenses. And there was only one lens at the front and one lens at the back. It wasn't any combination lenses. So we just cleaned them. I just put them in my mouth and washed them around a little bit and wiped them off and put them back into the eyepiece. And so if I didn't get the lenses turned around wrong, I was okay. And but anyway, that was a great little telescope. And then on down the road, you know, I ran into this neighbor boy in high school, and we got a little bit more intelligent about doing these things. And then I wanted to mention one thing is really important. Back in the 50s, especially, the skies were so much darker. When I got this Skyscope, we lived in the St. Louis area, and I mean, it wasn't any problem to look up in the sky. Let's take the constellation Virgo and just see every star within the lines, traditional lines that draw out Virgo, even the ones that were 4th magnitude, pushing 5th magnitude, they're clear as a bell. And then, you know, we lived a ways out from St. Louis then, but at the same time, the skies were dark. We moved to Springfield, Missouri when we built this next telescope, and the skies were still dark. And I can remember that my 10-inch telescope, the cave mirror, I had no problem with seeing like 14.2, 14.3 magnitude stars in the city of Springfield, and didn't have to go out, just in my backyard. Wow. And so the skies have definitely changed, and they've changed a ton in the last 20 years. And I don't know what we can do about that. But that's some of the early stuff that I remember, is the fact that you had to do things manually. You had to star hop. You had to use another program I used with Megastar, and really even Megastar came along when I was doing the Herschel 400 or 500 now, whatever. And megastar was an immense help to me to do that kind of thing, because I had what the field of view looked like in the eyepiece. That was amazing in that field, but that's already in the past 2000, in 2005 or something like that. Here, megastar comes along. So it took us amateur astronomy. It took a long time. It was moving very slow after World War II. And it had a lot of catching up to do. And then about the time it got caught up, then the computer came along and drifted it way back again, as far as amateurs are concerned. So, and then you didn't have photography. So you did sketches. You did drawings of what you saw. And and then the people who did photography, they had film cameras. Certainly not digital. And it's just a new world out there. And unfortunately, I'm not part of it, but as an active participant. Are you getting a bunch of feedback from me? I'm not hearing you.
I can hear Howard, but I can't hear Will.
Yeah, I muted myself. Sorry. I think it's I think Eddie's mic and speakers are picking up Howard and rebroadcasting it, unfortunately.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah.
You do hear me? Okay. But anyway, that's about the long and short of it, Will. And of course, the first computer scopes that were really for amateurs that came along was Meade and Celestron. And those scopes, that people liked those right off the bat. And a lot of them were sold. But anyway.
Howard, I have a question.
Okay.
When I look at something through my eyepiece, I have the benefit of all kinds of information. I mean, there's pictures I can look up. There's computer programs that show me close-ups of the objects from any angle I want. Back when you were observing, you had kind of a limit to what you saw was in a book, if you had a book.
Right, if you had a book.
A lot of times you just had a description. So I know, even with all the resources I have, when I'm hunting for an object, there's times when I said, I'm not sure if that's the right object. And I have to call somebody over to kind of look and say, well, okay, yes, that's right, or no, not quite. I can only imagine what it was like when you only had a book.
Well, especially when you were getting into faint objects and, there was lots of faint galaxies that, I knew I was looking at the field of view and they were right in the center of the eyepiece, but I couldn't see it. And of course, my eyes weren't that great, but they weren't that bad back then. And sometimes it would take several nights of being out there and looking at the same object over and over, and there it is, like somebody just turned on the light switch, And so it certainly, and you just didn't know. I mean, if there was more than one deep sky object in your field of view, well, which one was it? And there wasn't a whole lot of attention about which way was north up, or which way was north in the eyepiece, which way is the image drifting, and this kind of stuff. People weren't just throwing out that kind of information. You had to figure it out for yourself,
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was difficult to know for sure that you had the right thing until Megastar came along, when it would show you what was in the field of view of your supposed eyepiece. And then you could rotate your deal around your image, if you could pick up your laptop or whatever you were using and rotate it around to match it to what you were seeing in your eyepiece, before you could really know 100% sure, if you were kind of a novice, and everybody was around me was still learning, and we're still learning today. So it was a little bit complicated to figure that stuff out for sure, and make sure you're seeing the right thing in as much detail as you would love to see. So anyway.
Yeah, that's a great point though, Eddie, because even today, like Eddie was saying, you can use these go-tos and all this fancy stuff. Eddie's the same way, and as is Howard, we're more of a manual kind of. We like to look at the chart and go push the scope kind of over to our object as in the olden days. But it can be insanely hard, even in these technological times. And I think sometimes the technology gets in the way. Even sometimes when I'm using Sky Safari Pro on my phone, you've already got a red filter. It's dark out there, and you're kind of like turning your phone and trying to look in the eyepiece and going back and forth. And even with some of the technology that's supposed to make it easier, it can sometimes get in your way. And but I can only imagine, especially in the Virgo supercluster, like which one's M80, whatever,
Right.
Okay, you got to start you got to get like Uranometria or one of these other publications, maybe Burnham's Deep Sky Objects, one of those books that would maybe distinguish those things for you on the very earliest of photographic plates. But
Right.
it's very interesting, and I think it goes to show that the astronomers that came before us, in Howard's sort of generation, had it a lot harder, but at the same time they had access to better skies and a little bit better situation there. They had maybe less perfect optics, but in those days, I guess it all kind of evens out, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And of course, back then, as you were coming along, you didn't know you were having problems. Okay. you can't foresee ahead what was coming. So anyway, so you didn't worry about all that stuff too much back then, because you didn't know you had a problem and what have you, as you would now. And so anyway, but you're right about that stuff too. And but astronomy is such a wonderful hobby, and not only looking through the telescope, but going to the star parties and visiting with friends that live in other states, and you get to see them once a year or maybe twice a year at several star parties. It is so, I don't know, just really rewarding to come back and say, hey, guess what? On this trip, I saw the fireball you can't believe, man. It lit up the whole campground and the whole observing field. You could see shadows by it,
You got a sunburn, huh, Howard?
Those are the good ones.
Howard, I have a great memory. One of the first times I had the pleasure of observing near you, I think we were at Cominil. We were at Cominil, and it was just one of our club star parties, and you had your big scope set up, and you said, okay, tonight we're going to look at Pluto. Well, I got so excited because I'd never seen Pluto.
Yeah.
I looked at the eyepiece, and all I saw was stars, what looked like stars. And I said, Howard, I don't know what I'm looking at. And you had a sheet of paper with the star field drawn on it. You said, all of these are stars except this one. That's Pluto. So that's my experience of seeing Pluto through your telescope.
Yeah, I think I got that sheet of paper out of Sky and Telescope, to tell you the truth. But anyway, that is true. Pluto was always one of my, one of the things I thought I'd been in hog heaven when I saw Pluto the first time. I'd always wanted to see Pluto. and nobody could show it to me. That was back there in the 80s and stuff. Nobody could say, well, it's up there in this area, you know, it's in Sagittarius or whatever. And the only way you can tell that it's Pluto, you have to draw a little sketch of your star field and then come back 2 nights later and look at it. And if any one of those stars have moved, that was Pluto. And so that made it a tad complicated to find Pluto. And so when the actual stuff started coming out from SCON telescope showing where the stars were, where the planets were, their actual location, then that changed the whole thing and made it possible very easily to, if you spend a little bit of research, you could pinpoint Pluto pretty easy, actually. But then you had to have a scope that would pick up, 14.8 magnitude to come up with it too. And I think when the last time I saw it, it was about 15th magnitude. And so that's been 5 or 8 years ago. I don't know. But anyway, Pluto was a challenge.
I know the first time I took a picture of it, this was maybe back in 2015 or 2014 even, at Texas Star Party, and it was in the Sagittarius area. And as you know, as we discussed earlier, that is just nothing but a sea of stars. It's literally, you could get lost in there. And I was supposed to pick out this one, like Eddie said, here's this one dot, that's Pluto. And then there around it, there was 50 stars that were twice the magnitude of this thing. But with about an hour of my time and some due diligence, I actually did find that one particular dot that was Pluto. So somewhere on my hard drive, somewhere I have a picture of Pluto. But I got like Howard said, if I showed you my first picture of Pluto, you'd be like, really? That's it? Like, okay, because it's kind of just out there on the fringes of our solar system. Doing its thing, and but it's an amazing world to see, and it's definitely something that you should do at least once in your life for sure.
Oh yeah,
it's a bucket list item. Even though it's no longer a planet, it's still a bucket list item.
Dwarf planet.
There you go.
It's just got an extra name.
The old telescopes that were equatorial, that had the setting circles on them and stuff like that. I can remember the Tulsa Astronomy Club had a reflecting telescope, maybe a 16-inch on an equatorial mount. And they would try and pick out Pluto with a setting circles. There ain't no way, man. I mean, there ain't no way to put the telescope on it and identify something, you were lucky to be within a half a degree of where you were looking with the setting circles.
Yeah, and then you need clarification of exactly where this pinpoint of light is in relation to all these other ones. It's even Neptune and Uranus have some kind of spherical or circular, even in a small telescope they do.
Right.
I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this hobby is that as I've gotten more and more into it, there's been more and more resources to draw from. And even the technology has gotten better. We've discussed better telescopes that are easier to access. You don't have to write to somebody in India or China. You can actually talk to somebody on the phone about what you want. And where I grew up, my hometown, my library had very little on astronomy, and that has changed, and I think that's wonderful.
So, Absolutely. It's been as time goes on, we keep adding new fun stuff to it, and we brought up before, all we're doing is building on the shoulders of those who have came before us, like Howard Miner here. Eddie and I are both interns or students of Howard, because we sat up next to him, and he's like, well, you're doing this wrong, but here's how you do it right. And it was always very, here's the information. There was no, no holding back of stuff. And I remember one thing that Howard told me that just blew my mind, and it changed forever my observing. He said, well, if you're in a telescope, it doesn't matter what it is, turn off go to, and everything in the eyepiece is going to drift west. And I'm like, wait, what? I was like, oh man, that makes way too much sense, because everything moves from east to west in the sky, right? And so if you just let a star drift a direction, turn off go to, and just let the star drift, that's west. And then he's like, well, 90 degrees counterclockwise in a Dobsonian is north. So now you know where north and west are. Now you know where where all the directions are. And so that was huge in my double star observing. The double star award from the Astronomical League, you have to do it if you want to be a master observer. It's one of the core 5 that's required. So I saved it for last because I hated that award. I'm telling you, I hated it. But by the time I was done with it, I loved it, and I was obsessed with it because I used Howard's technique. I just let the star drift, and I'm like, okay, I know where west is. And now if that's 270, because west is always 270 on a compass, right? South is 180 degrees, right? 180. So then, once you figure out where west and north are, you know how those two stars are positioned around each other. Then all you really need to figure out is how much they're separated, and how bright one is and how dim is the other. And you're on it. You're observing double stars and making contributions to science, which I thought was incredible.
Yeah, and you take that not only for double stars, but you take it looking up deep sky galaxies and which way the major axis of the spiral galaxies are, and this type of thing. And so there's all the other objects you want to know also is east, west, north, south, and whatever scope you're using.
That's right. Yeah, and it's a huge thing it's such a small piece of information that somehow, we miss, where it's like trying to drink out of a fire hose sometimes when you're stepping into a new hobby like astronomy or whatever it is. So it can be overwhelming, but then somebody comes along and drops a little Easter egg in your head, and you're like, oh, cool. And that, Howard always had those Easter eggs for us out there on the field. And so, I know I've thanked you 1,000 times for that kind of stuff, Howard, but thank you for all your years of mentorship in that, and the many more years to come of that, because every time I hang out with Howard, I learn something new. So it's always awesome stuff.
Yeah. And you get a little bit of all that at a time, or not all at one time. Over a period of time, you get that stuff picked up, and by the time you can really use it, then something else comes along.
Yeah, exactly. The information becomes obsolete in a few hours these days, it seems like. But there is still some stuff that lasts through the times, like the Stargazer here, which is something I wanted to shout out right before we close out for the evening. We're going to do a little bit about this and then the comet. So if you want to know about the comet, NEO-wise, stay tuned for a few more minutes. We're going to talk about that coming up. But I just wanted to take a quick second here to highlight our awesome newsletter. You can see our board of our board members, Chuck Ferguson, our vice president, awesome guy. Got a text from Chuck earlier. And so hello to Chuck, hello to Brenda, and of course Howard's here and Eddie's here, so I don't need to say hello to them. But just a fantastic amount of information here in our, I'm assuming it's scrolling for you guys as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing here because, you know what, if y'all out there, if y'all want this newsletter for this month, since we're in such weird times, give me an email. Shoot me a message. I'll send the whole thing to you, just so you can preview what it's like to be a member of the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas for a little while. But you can see he puts information about where our club meetings will be, even if they're online. Stuff about the Astronomical League. All the news articles that basically Howard kind of goes out and grabs the fun ones and puts them all in one place for us. And like I said, every time I get one of these, I'm like, oh, well, I didn't hear about that. Like, what? how did I miss that? You know, and again, there's a fire hose of information out there, and you're trying to take a small sip. Sometimes it can be overwhelming.
Can you tell me about that refractor right there?
Yeah, well, I mean, not much. I can tell you that I've stood next to it, and it's a fantastic
Clark. It's a Clark. And I can't think of the guy's name with Bill Christian there.
Jack,
that's it.
Jack Eastman or Jack East, yeah.
That's it. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's very cool. Sometimes he wears 2 different kinds of socks.
Well, he's got 2 feet, Howard.
That he does, Eddie. He does.
Hey, I want to give a shout out. Bill Christian's in this picture, and I spoke to him earlier. He said he was watching the meeting, but he was not able to comment. So, hello, Bill. Good to see you, and we miss you, man. Bill is a great observer. He's one of the mentors of our astronomy club. We're fortunate to have so many great people and great observers. And Bill normally does the solar report, but since he's not here at this meeting, I gave it. So,
yeah.
How you doing, Bill?
Bill was a mentor of mine, so a whole lot when I first got moved down here and joined the club. He got me running the right direction.
Yeah, he's a founding member of our club.
Yeah, I was about to say, on the Mount Rushmore, that is the asset, the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas, Bill's face would be right there on Mount Rushmore as a founding father, for sure. And Bill's seen it all. Bill, if it's up in the sky, Bill's basically seen it in his 25-inch reflector. He's not necessarily a logger like us 3 on the panel are here, but Bill has seen it probably. If you bring up an NGC or an IC or some other kind of exotic object, he's seen it probably and knows where to find it. So shout outs to Bill. And, again, like Eddie said, we miss everybody, all of our friends that make up the club and stuff. And, but yeah, this newsletter is just amazing stuff. I love the layout. It's always fun. I mean, he's got something in here about Comet U6 Le Mans. And it's brightening in July, and I'm not exactly sure. It's near Leo, so this thing is sort of, I guess, setting in the west.
Yes, it is. It is setting in the west.
But get out and view it if you can. Like I said, he always brings up these amazing objects that you might miss again because it's times are fast, and we miss some of this stuff. But one of the globulars that he discussed earlier. Look at this this Hubble image of it. It's just gorgeous. And, this is one of the objects that Howard was challenging all of us to go check out over in Sagittarius. Easily done with binoculars, this one, as he says in the article there. And, again, just a wealth of information all through this thing. Parts of the moon. I mean, because sometimes we do deep sky stuff. We forget about the moon. Howard doesn't. And he's got articles on all of that. And if you read through this stuff, I guarantee you're going to pick up something that you may have not known. Who is Friedrich Wilhelm Bessel? I don't know. But Howard put in here, about this guy from the 1800s in Prussia, who was...
he was on the calendar. He was born on the calendar there. So I knew nobody would know who he is. So...
Howard's done an entire thesis on Wilhelm Bessel, and but no, it's just great stuff. Like all this kind of stuff is every month we get the new installment, and again, Howard's going to send you $1 if you put an article in here. And I mean, just having your article in this publication should be enough drive to get you to go out and do it. And at the bottom here, he's got all the planets, sun and moon, where you can find them in the sky, and where you can do all that. So Howard, again, round of applause on this, man.
Yeah, well done, Howard.
I look forward to the newsletter every month, and even when times get too busy and I forget to send him an article, it's always still a fantastic publication. Just really well done. And again, thank you, Jane, for editing.
She's the only person that's read every one of my newsletters for 10 years.
For all the way back. All the way back. That's awesome. But yeah, it's an amazing thing, and it's a perk of our club that you get just by being a member. It comes to your email every month, and you get all the sort of the happenings that are going on with the Astronomical Society. So if you're a member, that'll be a thing that you get. So as we're wrapping this up, I want to just quickly go over this comment, because this is the talk of the town. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier. We showed some pictures. So now I want to kind of show you guys and gals where we're going to be looking in the sky over the next couple of weeks for this thing. And it's an interesting thing. I've never really seen this sort of dynamic happen with a comet, at least not in recent past. It's an early morning comet. You have to get up before the sun comes up and start looking northeast, because if you wait too late, the sun's going to be up by that time. And it's going to blind it out for you. So here's where we are right now. The comet and the sun just set. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this to hours here. This is Sky Safari Pro. It's one of my favorite programs to use. And we'll just go here till about, like, let's say here, which is 5 in the morning, Central Standard Time right here. So there's the comet C2020 F3 Neowise. And you can see it's right here, really super low above the horizon, right before, and I'll speed time up to like right about there. And that's about as high as it's going to get in the horizon before the sun starts really kind of ruining everything. But you can see here, Sky Safari Pro doesn't have it as bright as it is because their data is based on a prediction, and that prediction is wrong when it comes to this comet right here. We are getting one of the most beautiful naked eye comets that I can remember in recent past. So let's take a look here at what happens. Now, if I go over here and set the time increment to days, we can watch what's going to happen over the next few days. Let's see, we're here at 7/11, which is tomorrow. It's obviously the tomorrow morning that we're looking at here. But watch what happens as I advance this as the days go on. It's pretty fascinating. And it's something that these softwares really allow you to check into, see where you're going to be in the next few days. Watch this. One day, boom. Look at that. It jumps from right here to right there. That's a pretty big jump for an astronomical object in the sky for one day. This thing is moving, y'all. And then if we go to, so this was, the July 12th. Here's July 13th, July 14th. And you can see already it's getting almost too low to observe from, pretty much anywhere, unless maybe you're at the North Pole, I guess, or something. And maybe it's like down a little further to the south a little bit. But at any rate, here it is, and it's just setting slowly. And you might be thinking, oh, no, we're going to lose the thing forever. Not quite. Watch what happens if I run the hours back to, say, the evening. Look at that. It's already in the evening sky 5 days from now. Okay, wow. So this thing is rapidly moving, y'all. And it's going to go from a morning comet to an evening comet in the next few days. Period. I mean, look at where we're at 8:48 p.m. So it's getting dark, and the sun is clearly set down here under the horizon line. Here, this is the screen line, and you can see Comet Neowise right here. Now, I predict that it'll be just as bright, if not a little brighter, right here in the evening. So you don't have to wait till 5 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. to wake up and get outside and start trying to look for this thing. You can hit it right as darkness or dusk happens. And watch as I switch back from hours to days again. And you can see, look at this. It's just continuing to climb into the evening sky, going right up in here into the foot of the Great Bear of Ursa Major, which is right here. And you can see it's trending this direction. So I'll just keep pushing those days forward. You can see we're already in July 19th here, July 20th, July 21st. And look at where we're at. As far as the as the sky goes, this is easily viewable from most northern latitudes around the world. If you're in the southern hemisphere, I'm not sure. I think this is where you lose it, maybe, but don't quote me on that because I'm not a southern hemisphere expert. But you can see the Big Dipper right here, the famous asterism that we all know and love right there. And some of the constellations that we're losing, here's Leo over here. We're losing that for the season. Leo's a spring thing, and so obviously we're in midsummer. You see the new moon is right here, so we got it at about the 21st. You see it's going to be a thin crescent. If you can spot a thin crescent at this on the 21st, I'll send you $1. You don't even have to send an article to Howard. I'll send you $1 if you can see this moon. And then as we go through the days, you can see the crescent moon comes out on the 22nd, and you can see comet Neowise is continuing to rise into the nighttime sky and just get higher and higher as time goes on, which presents an amazing opportunity. I can switch it to hours and we can go even darker. Now this is almost 10 p.m. where it's nice and dark outside, and you can see it's still well above the horizon, even coming into the later this month. My challenge to y'all is to get out. Whoops, I meant to go to days there. We'll just keep going forward in days. And you see it just keeps going on up and up and up. Down over into Coma Berenices, which is another beautiful spring. That's actually one of my favorite constellations right there. Over into the Virgo area, M85, that galaxy with the supernova is down here, slowly fading into the west. But as you can see, Comet Neowise sort of starts capping out at about August, early August. You start seeing it at the highest elongation in the sky that it's going to be. And then, of course, if I just keep going forward, you can see it really sharply turns to the west, and we start to lose it into the horizon as we lose those other constellations. So pretty fascinating stuff. I mean, if you just stay on this thing over the next few days, it's going to go from a morning comet to an evening comet, but faster than you can say Comet 2020 F3 Neowise. So get your cameras ready, because there's already been a flood of images coming out about this comet. It's a beautiful comet. Bob King of Sky and Telescope, he did a sketch of it the other night, and I wish I had a picture of it, but it was a bright ball with two distinct jets coming out of it with a blank spot in the middle. And that's what he viewed, I think, through binoculars. He did a sketch, and it was just a bright core or nucleus with these two massive regular tails coming out of it. And I think somebody has spotted a blue ion tail coming out of this thing recently, is what I've seen. So we'll see about that, I guess.
Binoculars, Will. You
exactly.
just need your binoculars.
Field glasses.
Field glasses, absolutely. Get your field glasses out. Get out in the field, and you too can be a comet hunter like David Levy, Howard Miner, or any of those other guys that came before us and saw it better than we ever could.
Hey, Will, one thing to point out is right now it's a morning object because it's approaching the sun, right? So it's
coming away from the sun. It's been around to the backside, and it's coming toward Earth. And that's the reason we didn't know about it until the last minute, a week or two back, because it'd been behind the sun. And now it's come out and surprised us.
Well,
so
see,
it's getting
I was
closer.
mistaken. I thought it was going to go around the sun. And, when comets have done that in the past, some of them break up. Yeah. And as they get higher in the sky, they're moving further away from the sun. When it goes to evening, it's just going to keep getting further and further away, and it might start to get dimmer. So don't wait.
Yes, that's a great point, Eddie. It will dim. Yes, and Howard's right. I think it's at one of its closest approaches to the sun now. That's why it's just so beautifully bright. I mean, it's got a beautiful tail, and it's a beautiful comet.
It's in between Mercury and Venus right now, moving toward the general direction of Earth.
Yeah, and what I can do actually with this software is I can.
Can you maybe show its orbit?
Yeah, I can type in Earth, and what I'll do is, of course, it goes to the ground. Now I can orbit the Earth, okay? And this is a powerful software, and anybody can get this. I mean, it's easy to get. Now I will search Neowise. There it is. And there it is. So what I'll do here is I can kind of zoom out, I think. Let's see if I can zoom out. Parallax will change a little bit as we move away from the planet. Okay. And I'll change the orientation of our solar system. There we go. So this blue dot here in the center, I guess y'all can see my cursor there.
Yeah.
That's Earth. And then, of course, we've got the sun here. And what I want to do is maybe go to some hours here. Watch this thing. Well, let's orbit the sun. There's just a few things we have to do here. And I'm going to recenter Neowise. Neowise. Okay. And I'm going to zoom in again because we don't want to be this far away.
No, that's a good view right there.
Yeah, so I'll put us back on the Earth side of the solar system, kind of giving us a kind of the eye view there. And now I'm going to run time forward in hours. And you can see that this baby is moving. Look at that. I mean, its orbital velocity is faster than the Earth around the sun. And you can see how it's kind of moving. I can go to the top and show you that it's actually between us and the sun as far as that goes. But you can see it's above the plane of the solar system. All these little orbits right here, these little red lines, blue lines, whatever. These are the orbits of the planets as they go around the Earth. You can see red is Mars and Earth is blue. You got Venus here and then Mercury on the inner side. You can see this comet is going away from the sun, like Howard had said, and coming from behind. And what I'll do here is I'll stop it. I'll go to now and put everything. This is exactly where we're at right now. And this is where this comet is. And so you can see, like Howard said, it kind of caught us by surprise, this little comet here. But that's the way we kind of like it. Although sometimes we'd probably not like it if it's going to intersect its orbit with Earth. But good thing space is a big place. And you can kind of see that as it goes along through its orbit. Just spectacular.
Yeah, very good. That's a great program. Well,
absolutely. Sky Safari Pro is a great one. There's others like Stellarium, free. Stellarium is free. Sky Safari Pro, you got to pay for it. But you know, I've bought this program probably 9 times by now, and I can tell you that it's worth it. It's definitely a powerful program for planning, getting out, knowing where the comet will be in the next few days, where it was, where it came from. You know, all that fun stuff is all easily attainable with this software. And we can watch this guy just burn out of our solar system and go on about its merry way as we sort of orbit the sun and do our thing. So pretty cool stuff. And like Howard said, you know, as this thing gets further and further away from the sun, it will start to dim. But hopefully, let's hope it just hangs on to the brightness as it goes. And we'll be able to get some really good views of it as time goes on. And hopefully maybe as time goes on, we get some more comets. I would love another Hyakutake or Hale-Bopp comet to come along our way. And maybe this is the one, you know, maybe this one is the one we get in the evening that just really wows us all. Hopefully it doesn't explode or break up or any of that stuff. But, you know, it's right now, as you can see, we're getting a good view, and you can see from the top down, it's in the orbit of Mercury. That's why it's so bright. I would say it's about the orbit of Mercury away from the sun. So it's close. It's a close object to the sun. And get out and view it now, because you are running out of time. But if you don't want to wake up early, just wait a couple of days. Get out in the evening, and we'll basically we'll have it for the next few evenings. And so as we're kind of closing out here, I'll get some final thoughts from the audience. We had Steve Olson with Howard, Dollar Man Minor. There we go. We always joke that, Howard was in the military, but if he would have advanced up to the rank of major, he would have been Major Minor.
That's right.
That'd have been the coolest moniker ever. And Stellarium is what Spencer said is super nice too. I agree. It is a very nice one. Howell White says most excellent program. I agree. And so as we're kind of wrapping it up here, I want to thank all of y'all in the chat for showing up and hanging out with us on another Friday evening for the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas. These are always fun, man. These kind of bring us back to a little bit of normalcy. I feel like, like Howard said, his thing is the newsletter. Every month he has to prepare this thing and get in there and dig, and it excites him. It's not something that he hates doing. He loves doing these. I love doing these meetings too, because again, we have to dig. We have to get in there and get in the minutia and discover new things, and it awakens our minds again to astronomy, because this is the hobby that we chose as the one that's going to fulfill our lives the most. And I know I speak for all these guys on the panel when I say that it has changed our lives completely. And in every way, you view every day, you view paying your taxes a different way when you have an astronomical perspective on things. At least I do. I don't know. But again, I want to say thank you to everybody in the audience as everybody's saying goodbyes out there. I want to say thank you to Howard Minor and Eddie Trevino for taking time out of their Friday evenings to hang out with us. Howard, do you have any parting words of wisdom as we wind it out here?
I'll tell you one thing. When you learn astronomy and you go out to a star party, you learn to pack a pickup. I guarantee it.
Yes. Yes. Eddie and I know, and Eddie's great at this. I am not. I throw things in there. When it's time to go, I'm just like, yeah, let's go. Eddie's got a system. There's stuff. Eddie's got it on lockdown, but that is exactly 100% true. 100%. Yeah. Eddie, do you have any parting words of wisdom for the people?
Well, once again, Will, you've done a great meeting. You've hosted a wonderful time for us and for a lot of people, it looks like. And Howard, it was good to see you again. Gosh, I miss you. And I miss everybody in the club. I can't wait till we can see each other face to face and, have some astronomy communing. It's a very humbling experience. When you look through an eyepiece and you're looking out at things that are so far away and that have been in existence for so long, and the people that you meet are just great people. So as I say, it's a humbling and rewarding hobby, and I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eddie. That's a great point that Eddie brought up there. It's all about the stars when you're talking about astronomy. But when you start getting into the mix of astronomy clubs and star parties, you learn that it's not necessarily all about the stars. It's about the people who have surrounded themselves in this community. And that, when you go to a star party and there's 8 days of clouds, you learn real fast, that who your friends are out there and who aren't. But you also get that connection, that human connection of, well, I guess there's no stars tonight. We might as well play a board game or, watch a movie together or do karaoke or whatever it is those wacky weirdos do at these star parties. But you do learn that it is the people. Because, again, I would be half the observer today if it wasn't for people like Howard Minor, being there, decades of experience before I was even born. Howard was entering his, third or fourth decade by the time I was in diapers, so.
Well, I was born in the 30s. Can you believe that?
Wow.
In the 30s.
In the 30s, yeah. See, I was born in '83, so there's quite even in this room right here. There's quite a age gap. But one thing brings us together as if we've been friends or family for all of our existence, and that's astronomy. That's our love and fascination of the sky above us, you know?
Age doesn't make a difference.
That's right. That's right. Because the people that surround, you know, people that get in this hobby, we're all of like minds at some point, you know. So it's a beautiful thing for sure. I wanted to mention a few people as we close it out. Sharon Razy says, "Great meeting. Good night, all. Good night, Sharon. Thank you for coming." Absolutely.
Bye, Sharon.
Yeah. Andy Callie says, "Thank you for a great night." Thank you, Andy, for joining us all the way from the UK. He stuck through till the end, so that's an awesome thing, man. We really appreciate that. Hopefully, I know it's daytime over there now, so hopefully your day is good. Hopefully your Saturday, I think it is now. Hopefully your weekend's great. Hopefully all y'all's weekends are great as well. If you do have to go out, you know, again, wear your mask, wash your hands, stay away from each other just for a few more months, and we can kick this thing if we just do what we need to do to kick it. I think we'll get through it, and you know, vaccines are on the way and all this stuff, so we'll be back to normal before we know it. And we might look back on this time and be like, man, I kind of miss social distancing a little bit with some of the things that might happen. But hey, you know, it is what it is. Thank you, Steve Olson, for joining us. We appreciate all of y'all in the chat, all of y'all who shared the program on your social media, brought others into the mix. And we really appreciate that. All the members of Asset that are out there, thank you for joining us. We appreciate y'all. We appreciate the continued support for the club. And, you know, we look forward to the day where we get to meet again. Like Eddie said, you know, hopefully sometime maybe at the end of this year or at the beginning of 2021, we can start getting together again and having snack time and all that like we used to do. You know, a lot of y'all are missing the cookies and coffee at halftime that we usually do. So again, thank you, Howard. Thank you, Eddie and Kat. I know Kat's back there on the sun somewhere. Somewhere in there.
Yeah, she's out and about. I think she's taking care of the dog or something.
Yeah, giving the old dog a walk, but you got to do that. You know, can't neglect the old pooch. Thank you, Glenda, for joining us. It's always great to see Glenda in the house with us. We appreciate all of y'all again. And again, we will be back next month, more than likely. We will have an August online meeting right here on the Astronomical Society's Facebook page, on my channel on YouTube, Deep Sky Dude. I try to broadcast it everywhere I can, everywhere that's relevant, so that a broader audience can kind of see behind the curtain of a local astronomy club, which is kind of cool. It's kind of neat that our club has been able to do these kind of events and get out and kind of, you know, bring it to a wider audience. I mean, we got people from the UK coming and hanging out with us, and that's pretty spectacular. So with that, if neither of my fellow gentlemen have anything else for us, I'd say we'll close her out. And I think let's see. We could do a live cast. A message from Eddie. We could do a live cast of the comet, especially in the evening. Oh yeah, I think that might be more than doable. I can go out to the airport over here, Great Western Horizon. That'd be fun. That's a great idea, Eddie. So we'll probably look at that over the next couple of days. So if you catch the comet, send your reports in to Howard. Get that $1. Again, we thank all of y'all for joining us. We will see y'all right back here next month, same bat time, same bat channel, for another installment of the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas, and our monthly meeting. We appreciate y'all watching, and we will see y'all on the flip side. Y'all have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.